Hey everyone, good morning. Just adding Barb here.
Hey, Toya.
Well, hello
Hi,
there.
Barb. Well, hello. How are you?
I'm good. I'm not in Florida, which is where it appears you are. Is that where you
Yes,
are?
yes, I am. I am. It's nice.
You look absolutely glowing and delightfully gorgeous.
Oh, you're
Not
so
just
sweet.
your I don't know, the smile is really coming from within. And also the setting is pretty
So
damn
you're
beautiful.
beautiful. Thank you. I'm sitting
Yeah,
outside and it's just gorgeous. I'm like, the curtains in the back won't do the do it justice.
right.
So let's share the love and the heat and the warm weather, just the good vibes with everyone. So
Wonderful.
yes, yes,
Fantastic.
yes.
Well,
It's always good to see you, Barb.
you too.
Thank you,
So,
thank you.
we'll get started with the content in a minute, but for those of you who are joining right away, thank you. I see Essence of L. I'm not sure
Yes.
exactly who that is, but yay, thank
Yes.
you for
Hi,
joining.
hi. That's Toya. That's Toya.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Oh, hey, Claire.
Hi.
And
So,
so I'm Barb Nangle of Higher Power Coaching and Consulting, and I'll let Chantel introduce herself in a moment, but we're here today to do week 3 of 4 on IG Lives on boundaries and finances because we work together. I have my own coaching and consulting business, Higher Power Coaching and Consulting, and Chantel is my financial thought partner. And in our work together, it just sort of seemed like we should talk about this to other people
yes.
because it seems like something that would resonate with a whole bunch of people. But do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we
Absolutely.
can do a recap and then dive in?
Dive in. Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Chantel Garcia. I'm the owner and founder of Innovative Consulting and Solutions. I partner with not for profit leaders, executives, and entrepreneurs to help them build financial boundaries that help them manage their finances. And I'm so happy to be here today on episode 3. We were psyched about this episode because we're like, everyone can relate to boundaries and finances in relationships. So,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Did you want me to go with a
Okay.
recap, Barb, or?
I'll do it this time.
Okay.
In the first 2 weeks, we called it Basics 101 and 102. So week 1 was really defining like what is a boundary, and it's a rule or a limit that you set for yourself. A budget is an example of a financial boundary. And the way that we determine how or where we want to set our boundaries, it has to do with our values. So if it's your personal budget or your business budget, what is it that you want to accomplish? So for example, if you love to travel,
Right.
then you're going to put more money in your travel budget and probably less money in maybe your dining out budget. I'm not really sure. But in terms of your business, if your business goal is to grow, then you're probably going to put more money into marketing than office furniture, for
Right.
example.
Right.
And then in terms of what a boundary does for you is it's for you. Most people think that boundaries are for other people. They're really for you, for how you want to live your life, but you do have to communicate them to others. And that's what we got into in the second week. So last week we talked about when you set boundaries, they need to be clear, not murky. Boundaries are clear and they're not like wishy-washy and murky. And they help us set expectations with other people. So we teach other people how to treat us, and we can reteach people how to treat us. And the other thing, speaking of teaching people, is everybody is teachable. If you've never had emotional boundaries or financial boundaries, you can learn. And I am a prime example of both of those things. I had horrendous financial problems earlier in my life, and I cleaned that up. And I also didn't have boundaries, and now I actually coach people on boundaries. So you can change.
Right.
And so you're responsible for setting your expectations and communicating them very clearly to other people. And you're also in charge of enforcing those boundaries. So if people push back on your boundaries, then you have to do something to follow up. You don't just let it go, because otherwise it's not really a boundary.
Hmm.
And then when it comes to your finances, it's the same thing. So if you're a business owner, and your finances are not working out, it's on you. I mean, you do have a staff that works for you, but ultimately you're the one that should be making the decisions about that. You're the one that's going to enforce that.
Right.
And then one of the principles that I talked about last week in terms of boundaries was that boundaries not only keep bad things out, they let good things in. So for personal boundaries, that might look like I allow people to help me.
Mm-hmm.
I accept support. I accept praise. I accept compliments and that sort of thing. In terms of your business, letting good things in is you want to charge the prices that you are worth charging.
Yes, yes.
You want to let the money come
We're
in.
going to talk about
And
that more on week 4, yeah.
right, for sure. And then in terms of keeping the bad things out, most people really understand what that is. You don't let people walk all over you. And in terms of your finances, it's things like, you are not going to pay when somebody is not delivering the services that they've said that they're going to deliver. So is there anything you want to add to the recap?
I do. And I realized it after our last episode is one thing we didn't talk about is setting boundaries that are realistic and that you would actually follow too. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can't have all these expectations for someone else and set boundaries that you're expecting them to respect if, in fact, you aren't willing to follow those same ones if someone set those boundaries for you. So just being mindful of, yes, this boundary protects me and how I feel, but making sure they're realistic too, and that if someone, set them for themselves, that you would be able to follow them and not be upset and feel like they're unrealistic. But that's about it, Barb. You covered everything.
Yeah, and I'm gonna tack on to something that you just said. And the thing is that what I find, especially with my clients, and what I learned when I started forming healthy boundaries, is if you know that you don't have healthy boundaries and that people are walking all over you, what you probably don't know is you are walking all over other people's boundaries. So what Chantel just said, that if you're gonna set a boundary, you want to make it sure something that you would follow, that's kind of a clue for you. Like, have you, the thing that you're asking people to do for you, have you not been doing that thing with other people? Mm-hmm. So an example in my life is I used to give all kinds of unsolicited advice to people. I don't want unsolicited advice from other people. And I was like, oh my God, I totally do that. So now, if I really feel like I want to give some advice, then I ask if they want feedback. Now, except for when I'm coaching. Of course, I'm a coach. You come to me to be coached.
Right.
But other than that, I think that's a really good point that most people, and it's a hard pill to swallow to understand, I don't have good boundaries. I'm probably trampling other people's boundaries too. But you can change.
Right, exactly. You are absolutely right. And hello, Arlene. Thank you for joining us. Just wanted to say hello. So today,
hi there. Is it Achieving Dreams? Is that Arlene?
Yep, that's Arlene, the CEO of Achieving Dreams. Amazing organization. Yes, yes.
Fantastic. And I have gotten some comments from folks who watched the replays that haven't been able to come live. So I know that that's happening. So hi to all of you watching the replay of this.
Right. Yes, yes. Yeah. I've gotten a lot of feedback too, and just people saying it's been very helpful. And they are looking forward to this episode too. So I will say this may go over the 30 minutes because there's a lot that we want to cover and unpack because relationships, it applies to your personal relationship with your partner, your friendships, your family members, all of the above, your kids, everything. We talked today, we're going to talk about the boundaries in relationships and where our habits may be coming from and how they affect our relationships. And really to set the stage here is kind of going back to episode 1 when we started talking about our values and where they come from, but also our upbringing, right? Where do our financial habits come from? It's not something that we just this is the way that I do it because I'm doing it. And in fact, it's been modeled for us from the time we came out of the womb, really seeing how our parents manage the finances. So whether they're frugal or frivolous, depending on your background and what your status was growing up, whether you didn't really have much to spend and so you wore a lot of hand-me-downs, or you grew up in a household where you didn't have to worry about making ends meet, and your parents, if you wanted something, they got it for you, or even just in between. And I also want to make a disclaimer here that, as we're talking about this, for me personally, I'll speak for myself that I'm speaking from my own experiences, and how we're talking about these boundaries, and really not to disrespect anyone and how they live their lives, you know, because everybody's different, and I can't really speak to someone that, you know, grew up very different than me. It's just more of my perception and my perspective looking from the outside in. So I just want to say that because I don't want to step on any toes here.
Yeah, me too. And I agree. I can only really talk about my experience, but I do have some experience with, you know, clients and,
Yes,
and you know,
exactly.
how they grew up. And I'm also in 12-step recovery, and money is a topic that comes up pretty regularly because, you know, when you're an addict, it's
Right,
probably not that great. You
exactly.
hear that really loud noise?
I don't hear it because I have my earpiece on,
Oh, okay.
and
It sounded
it
like
would.
maybe something, a loud
Okay,
radio went by or something like that. I'm not
okay.
really sure.
Sorry about that.
So,
It seems
so
that's fine.
anyway, you know, as Chantel was saying, we develop patterns with our lives in all different areas, including our boundaries and our boundaries around finances. It starts with our family. It doesn't mean we can't change and learn, but I know what the financial boundary in my family was: we don't talk about it.
Mm.
There was no, like, I remember opening a bank account as a kid, and I remember that I was the kind of kid who, you know, that phrase, there's money burning a hole in your pocket, that was
Yes,
me. And my
yes.
older brother always had money and was always saving money.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what, like, whatever the messages we got, they were the same messages, but there was some parts of our personality that were in there as well. But my parents, and also I'm 58, so the world was very different. Credit cards were not huge the way they are now.
Mm-hmm.
But I do remember my parents saying, like, credit cards are for emergencies. They're not, you know, for living off of and stuff like that. But I was not taught how to deal with my finances. And so I landed on my face a couple of different times as an adult. And I racked up a whole bunch of credit card debt because I didn't understand what compound interest is. And the first time I, like, shut all those down and paid them all off, and then I did the whole thing again, and then I declared bankruptcy, and I had a lot of shame around that. When my student loans came due, I couldn't handle them on top of all the debt that I had. And now, like, it's kind of shocking to me that I can say, like, on the airwaves, I declared bankruptcy in 1999, and it's probably because I turned that around.
Right.
So in 2008, I was able to buy a home, but I changed a lot of my behaviors. I was telling Chantel recently that I was coaching with a guy. He was coaching me, and I was just a complete mess. And it had to do with my finances. And he said, I want you to go and write down all of the financial behaviors you've changed in the last year. And it was 24 behaviors, because I used to bury my head in the sand and never, and this is before you could go online. There was no online. You weren't looking up your bank account. It was like you needed to balance your checking account with a paper statement and all that stuff. And so, you know, I know what it's like to be someone who has no boundaries around their finances and is people pleasing. And so I guess I'll jump into some of the relationships we're talking about. I would say every financial problem I've ever had in my life has to do with the fact that I'm codependent. Now, I'm actually a recovered codependent. I'm not anymore. But I either wanted to make people think that I had more money than I didn't, or just didn't want them to know how little money that I had, or I was trying to impress them or by their affections. As I got older and my codependence got worse, I did things like trying to rescue and save people with my finances. And so every problem I had financially had to do with the fact that I didn't have healthy emotional boundaries. And that's one of the reasons why we want to talk about this. Because boundaries, when you have healthy emotional boundaries, it literally reverberates into every single area of your life. And as we've talked about, I think every week, if you have really poor personal financial habits, you probably have really poor business financial habits as well. And again, you're teachable, all that stuff can be cleaned up. So one of the things, some examples that came up for me in terms of things I did with friends were when I was in, especially in my early 20s, which everybody was getting married, I was in like 3 weddings in 1 year. And every one of those weddings, and weddings were different back then because you didn't have you had a shower and you had a wedding. You didn't have an engagement party and a shower and a Jack and Jill and a bachelorette party and a wedding. Like now you have gifts for all those and probably outfits, and your hair is supposed to get done and your nails and that stuff. But even so, I had to buy shoes and a dress, and some of them I had to buy particular undergarments for the dresses. And then I had to, you know, do whatever, hair, all that kind of stuff. And instead of saying to someone either I can't be in your wedding or this is how much money I have to spend, what do you want me to spend it on? I just went into debt because of that, because I didn't know how to say, I didn't even know that saying no was an option.
Right.
You know, with my friends. So that's an example. Do you want to talk, maybe let's talk about, since I'm talking about friends, do you have any examples about friends and boundaries with finances?
I would say starting the relationship with this idea that it kind of goes spinning off of what you're talking about, is that you have to be the one to really like cover the bill, right? Or buy your way into a friendship. And you're really setting a precedence that, oh, hey, you know, in order for this person to like me or to be included in a group of people that maybe I shouldn't be included in, I'm going to treat them out all the time. You know, oh, no, don't worry about that. I'll cover the tab. Knowing that you possibly can't, it's possible that you can't even afford it, right? And so they're going to have this level of expectation from you that, you know, every time we go out, oh, they're going to cover it. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to order everything under the sun because I don't have to pay for it because my friend is going to cover it for me. And I think the other element to all of this, as we're talking about boundaries and finances, and that you alluded to this, was that the level, not alluded, but you said it, the insecurity piece of it too, and feeling secure. And people tell you, those who are really genuinely attracted to you, like those are people that you should be having in your circle versus you trying to pay your way into a circle you don't belong in. And the other part of it too is maybe having friends who are on different levels, right? Like you may not have a job that pays as much as another friend of yours. Like you went to college with them, high school or whatnot. So for them, money may not be an object, you know, it's like, whatever, you know, I can take all of these luxurious trips and, you know, cover bills and do whatever, buy bottles versus, you know, do a bottle service versus getting something from the bar, and you trying to keep up with that because that's your friend, right? Even when you all were on the same playing field, but not being able and having the courage enough to say like, hey, actually, I can't afford all of that, you know, and that's not where I am right now. Now, if you want to live that type of lifestyle and you want to have that capacity, that's something you have to work towards, right? And sometimes instead of just saying like, I'm going to get there and I'm going to work towards that, and then one day I will be able to have bottle service. Instead, we're like, all right, well, I'm just going to have to keep up with them. And so I'm just going to swipe this card. You know, I'll cover the bill later. Next thing you know, you're on your second card because you're not able to pay off that other card and you max it out. And then the next card, then the next card. And now you're stuck with all this credit card debt that your friend doesn't necessarily have because they're paying cash for it because they can afford it. And it's hard, right? Because at one point you were all on the same level, and it's just like, why am I not there? And but I think it's very important that the insecurity piece, or feeling secure about where you are, but also making plans, right? We talked about your plans and budgeting about where you want to be. So what moves are you? What targeted goals do you have? If that's the type of lifestyle that you want to live, it's like, okay, well, how do you position yourself to do that? Do you get a better paying job? Well, what requires you to get that better paying job? I need to go back to school. Well, then do that. If it is ultimately your goal to live that type of lifestyle, your choice, then here are the steps. You can't skip steps. There are no shortcuts, right? Your friend did their work. They put in their time. They moved up the ladder to get to where they are. I'm pretty sure they didn't wake up and like, oh, I'm making $200,000 a year. Like, no, I'm pretty sure they put in the work. And their road and their journey is just completely different than yours. You know, maybe along the way you had kids. Okay, doesn't mean ultimately you can't get there. Like they said, it's a marathon. Like it's going to take time, and you would just have to be on your own journey, and just realize that it doesn't make you less than that person. It doesn't mean that you can't ultimately get there, but you just have to be patient with the process and trust the process too. I know I started preaching a little bit, but I just wanted to add that piece in there.
Well, I have a couple comments about that came up for me when you were talking. So one thing that someone might do if they're not willing to be direct and have direct communication with someone and say, that's not where I'm willing to spend my money, or maybe I can't afford it, whatever it is, sometimes they might just make up some lie, an excuse, and then fade away out of that friendship because they're not willing to have the direct conversation. So that's another thing that can happen if you're not willing to set the boundary. And then the other thing, you know, we talked about values, and we're going to talk about it every week because that's how you determine where your boundaries are.
Right.
So let's say you do have the money to get bottle service, but you're going to Barbados because you'd rather travel than go out drinking with your friends.
Right.
So that's how your values impact your boundaries in terms of your budget and all that sort of thing.
And your decision making.
Right. Maybe you do go out to the club with your friends, but you're like, I'm going to go up to the bar and I'm going to be drinking bottled water, you know, because I want to be with you guys, but I don't want to participate in this kind of money spending because I have other goals that I'm trying to achieve.
Right. Exactly.
And then the other thing, because we're both entrepreneurs, we think I don't have enough money. That means I need to earn more. It doesn't mean I need to cut down other places. I need to earn more. You know, you hear a lot about in the financial world to be frugal and to cut down and to follow your budget, which is all smart, of course. Yes. But you don't hear much about, well, how about you increase the income? So there's all kinds of ways that you can do that. We're not here to talk about that. But don't forget that there's all kinds of ways to earn money.
Right, right. And we should probably eventually talk about that, Barb, because I think that's a big thing. It's like, you know, both ends. It's either you earn more or learn how to cut back. And maybe that's another episode for the future, because I definitely want to dig into that some more too. Yeah. But watching the time, we have to move on.
Yeah, and actually, there's a couple more things that we wanted to say about friends. Yes. So one of the boundaries that people have around finances is that they don't talk about them. And so it's pretty uncommon, at least in the United States, for people to share with their friends how much money they make, how much they paid for their house, how much credit card debt they have, how much student loan debt they have. And we're not saying that you need to do that. Just know those are boundaries. If you're not sharing that information with people, that's a boundary that you have.
Yes.
Another thing that came up for me probably 20 years ago was I finally decided, you know what, I can't exchange Christmas gifts with my friends anymore. I don't want to do that. I'm only going to exchange gifts with my family. And when I went to all my friends, I was like, listen, in like October, I was like, listen, I'm not exchanging Christmas presents with friends anymore. I'm with family. Literally every single one of them was like, oh my God, thank God. Thank you so much. Because I found myself like, what can I get this person? Because I'm supposed to get them a gift, not when I see someone. So in my relationship with my sweetheart, there's no expectation for birthdays and anniversaries that we exchange gifts. We do exchange gifts on Christmas. And what I've said to him is, when you, out of the blue, give me a gift because you saw it and you thought of me, that is amazing. And I feel so loved by that. I would way rather have that than have this expectation that on my birthday or on our anniversary, you are going to come up with the perfect gift. Yes. And be pissed off at you if you don't. So these are boundaries. Like, what are our boundaries on gift giving, whether it's with our family or not? And I know you talked about Christmas gifts. So we can maybe use this as a way to go into family, boundaries with the family.
Well, I talked about just how we don't really put a lot of emphasis on Christmas, and a lot of people probably won't love hearing me say that. But with our kids, we really don't tie their behavior with the number of gifts that they receive. Now, we buy our kids stuff throughout the year, right? Just randomly, like, oh, I thought of you, to your point. It's like, oh, I thought you would like this. This would be cute, a cute outfit, a new toy. Or we see something like, oh, Aiden would love that. Or, oh, Ava would love that. But in Christmas time, we don't do the whole make a Christmas list, right? And if you behave, you're going to get everything that you want on the gift. Nor do we splurge. Like, people know, and people ask me, hey, what should I get your kids for Christmas? I'm like, get them underwears, socks, pajamas. Like, do not get them things that they need, right? And we'll get them toys, you know, obviously, but we really buy them things that they need. And we don't want to set this precedence that, okay, during Christmas, we're going to splurge. We're just going to buy you everything and just, you know, fill up your room with all these toys. Now, again, that's us, right? That's our choice. But it's very important that the kids understand that we love them regardless of the number of gifts that we give them, and it has nothing to do with their behavior, because they should behave anyways and not because they're looking for some type of reward. You behave because I'm raising you to be a well-rounded individual that's going to respect others, and respect yourself. Not, oh, because you did this good thing, I'm just going to buy you a gift. So it's just like, yeah, every time I do a good thing, mom or dad's going to buy me gifts. It's like, no, you're going to do a good thing because that's what you're supposed to do. And that's a value, that we're instilling in you. And on top of that, yes, we're going to buy you gifts because we have the capacity to do so. And then we want to, because we want to. And the same thing with you, Barb. I tell other people too, like, hey, no, you don't have to give me anything, because a big part of me too, I'm not really a big gift giver, because I personally don't like that pressure of, oh my God, like the anxiety that comes with it. I don't know if they're going to like it. Did I spend enough money on it? Is it big enough? Is it small enough? Maybe I should have gone with this and that. And what goes through my mind, I don't like the way it makes me feel. So I just don't give gifts. And I tell people the same thing. Don't give me a gift. If you choose to, I appreciate it. But also the other part of it too is that when you give gifts, don't get upset when people don't give you gifts. Like, it's not about being reciprocated. It's something nice that I want to do for someone else. And that's just that. I'm not expecting anything out of it. I'm not expecting anything from them. There are no strings attached. And that's what a gift is. That is what a gift is.
Right. And if you have a different philosophy than that, it's okay.
Yes.
But what healthy boundaries do is have you tell people that.
Right.
So if you really like getting and giving gifts with people, and you're giving gifts to people and they're not giving you gifts, then you need to have a conversation and say, I'd really like to get a gift back from you. And then you let them negotiate with you. You don't get to dictate, like, this is how the relationship goes. This is reminding me of, I had this friend a few years ago. She kind of fell out of my life a few years ago. But when we were first getting to know each other, every time she would come to my home, she would bring me a gift. And I'm talking like, like a serving dish, this beautiful mirror that had like a bird. I mean, we're talking like probably at least $50 each.
Oh, wow.
And after like the third or fourth time, I said, I got to be honest with you. I feel like you're trying to buy me. And she was not happy with that, but we talked about it over time. And she said, I'm so glad you said that to me, because it helped her to realize that she was trying to buy me, that was a pattern of hers. And she actually grew up in a very wealthy family where there was literally a drawer of cash.
Oh, wow.
And she would just go help herself, which I can't even wrap my mind around that. And so to her, money was love. Her parents were not around, but the drawer of cash was around. So money equated love. And so she felt like she had to give things to people. And then to feel loved, she needed to receive things.
Right.
So one of the things I said to her was, I'm uncomfortable receiving these gifts because I feel like you're trying to buy me. And also, I'm not going to get into a tit for tat with you, because I'm not going to spend this kind of a money on a gift for you. I'll buy you a gift from time to time because I feel like it, but I'm not going to spend this much money on it.
Right.
And I'm not going to get into this back and forth. And I had that, this was like a couple of years into me learning to have healthy boundaries, so I could actually come right out and say it. I can tell you in the past, if that had happened, I probably would have just found a way to get out of that friendship rather than talking about it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have healthy boundaries and I didn't know how to have uncomfortable conversations with people.
And I think we touched upon that a bit last time, as far as not establishing boundaries or setting them because of how it's going to make someone else feel. But to your point, it's like we avoid a lot of important conversations because it's like, yeah, it's how they feel, but also how it makes us feel. And I think a lot of growth comes with that, though, when we're able to face our fears and have those tough conversations. I feel like after you do it a couple of times, you get used to it, at least for me. And I've had to learn that. And it's too, where it is personal, but it's not personal. And it's just an important conversation for us to have. I'm not here to hurt your feelings, but it's very important for me to let you know what you're doing and is hurting me, right? And here's why. And it needs to change. And I think that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that at all. No.
So
Not
I
at
just
all.
noticed what time we're at. So I think we should move into talking about relationships with significant others. And
Yes.
so just full disclosure, I have never been married. I've lived with someone 5 different times. I've never combined household finances with another person. I literally can't even wrap my mind around that. But that doesn't mean I haven't had to set financial boundaries with my partners. And I was horrible at it,
Mm-hmm.
previous to having healthy boundaries. And I had this one person, the person I was with the longest, I was with a guy for 10 years. He made like 3 times as much money as I did.
Mm.
And I tried to keep up with him and I finally just couldn't anymore.
Wow.
And I ended up leaving the relationship with a shitload of debt because I just finally said to him, listen, I just can't do it. I just don't have the money to do this. And he was like, he never expected me to. That was my inability to feel worthy and to communicate my boundaries to him. It wasn't about him not wanting
Right.
to pay my way. He was like, it's about damn time you let me pay your way. But one of the things that I hear from couples that sounds very healthy to me
Mm-hmm.
is, and of course I'm going to let Chantal talk about this because she is married and has combined finances, is that there's a certain amount of household income based on the percentage of money they earn. So say someone makes 100,000 and someone makes 60, or wait, let's just say six. Yeah. So then the percentage of their income that goes into the household will be, tied to how much money they make. And then they also each have their own pot of money
Mm-hmm.
so that they can make purchases without even discussing with the other person because it's none of their business because the finances are separate. And then out of the pool of money that is shared, there's a certain level over which, whether it's like 200, 500, 1,000, that you're never going to spend without conversing with the other person first out
Mm-hmm.
of the pool of money. But then some of the other boundaries are some people really pay very close attention to their finances, and other people don't pay any attention at all. And it could be because they're irresponsible, or it could be because they have so much money they don't really need to pay attention to it. So when you're dating someone, starting a conversation a few months into the relationship about what are your feelings and thoughts and habits about money, even before you talk about like how much you make, is an important step in developing the intimacy of a loving and close relationship.
Right.
So I've had a number of conversations with my sweetheart about our financial situations because, I have my own business. I have a couple part-time jobs. I'm partially withdrawing from my retirement, which can't last forever. And he's on a fixed income, but I have a lot more leeway than he does. And so we have conversations ahead of time about like how often do we want to go out to eat or how much are we willing to spend on a vacation or, those sorts of things. So, these are the kinds of conversations that happen when you have healthy financial boundaries in a relationship. So I'm going to turn it over to you because I'm sure you have so much more to say than I do because you're actually in a marriage where you have combined finances.
Yes. Well, before I even get there, I want to talk about a previous relationship that I was in, um, where I actually covered a lot of it because a lot of the expenses and the bills and whatnot, and almost felt obligated to always fix things and cover everything because I was making more money. But by doing that, kind of what I was saying earlier is setting that precedence that I'm always going to be the person to cover it. You don't have to worry. And that person and my partner at the time, they were just very lax. They didn't feel the need or urgency to like really make more money. So this way they can really step up and play their role in the relationship. No matter how many conversations we've had about it, we're just kind of like, okay, like, look, I'm not going to just cover everything. Like you have to step up and put your, do your part too. But where I went wrong is that even though I said that, I didn't hold them accountable. And I continued to still play my part and do my thing where it's just like, she's going to cover anyways. So why am I even going to bother to step
That's
up
what
and
I
do
call
my part?
Yeah, I call that a wish or a hope. So boundaries have consequences. So you set a
Exactly.
boundary with them, but you didn't have any consequences. So it wasn't
That's
really a
right.
boundary, it was a hope or a wish. So
Exactly.
when that is the most common thing that people do is they say, well, I told them my boundary. Well, you don't just tell your boundary. You have to have actual consequences, which
Exactly.
means you have to do something. Most of the time, when it's setting personal boundaries, it's just simply that you repeat the thing that you say.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to financial boundaries, like in Chantel's case, the consequence would be, I'm having this conversation with you, I'm no longer going to pay for everything. And then she actually stops paying for
Stops
everything.
doing it, right? So when things bounce or whatever it is, that's on you. That I told you, right? Now
Mm-hmm.
you have to go and clean it up. No, I'm not calling that creditor or that whoever. That's on
Mm-hmm.
you. So that's, yes, taking it a step further. That's, like you said, holding that person accountable. So it's really the follow through in all of this when it comes to the boundaries. Is when you're with your significant other, it's making it very clear about what you're going to cover, and then what they make it clear what they're going to cover, and you both agree on that, right? There wasn't
Mm-hmm.
that conversation. It was more of like, through my actions, I set the precedence. And then once I got fed up, I then tried to set that boundary. But to your point, there was no lack of accountability, no consequence, and no follow through. But now
Mm-hmm.
in my marriage, which is healthy and is great now, we were very clear from the beginning of how we were going to mix our monies. And so we do pull everything together. We both take an allowance. And like you said, had mentioned before, whatever we do with our allowance is our business. So if I decide to spend my entire allowance going shopping or buying fast food, going out with my friends, that is my business. But at the end of the day, if I need gas money, well, I should have budgeted and I should have managed my money much better. And so we also set goals, like what we love to do for our family. So we love to vacation all the time. So we have a savings for vacation, and we decided how much money we were going to put in there every single month. We decided what our emergency savings is going to be. And we also want to invest in property. So we are saving for that as well. So these are all of our joint goals for each other. I personally have my own savings. So whatever I want to do with that money and put money in retirement, investments, all of that other stuff. But collectively, we are clear of what the pools of monies are and how much we're
Mm-hmm.
putting in each of those. And then for the bills, regardless of who makes what, we split it down the middle 50-50. Or we just pull the money in there and say, this is how much money is in that pot. This is what we have to cover for bills, and we pay it. We don't say, well, you didn't bring in much money this week, you should have worked overtime, anything like that. We are clear that for us in our relationship and in our marriage, this is how we manage our money together. And we don't say, you're not bringing enough to the table, because honestly, there are things that I fall short on that he picks up for, and then he falls short on and that I pick up for. So in
Mm-hmm.
many other spaces, it always balances out, and that works for us. And I really think that it just takes away all of the pressure and the stress around money, because we talk about it all the time. I don't make a financial decision without talking to him about it, and we agree upon it, and meaning we jointly go into whatever that decision is together.
Mm-hmm.
Even sometimes we agree to disagree, but that's okay, because we took the step of talking about it first and then moving forward with it. We never ever, I don't go out and buy, one of the kids like a big gift without consulting with him. Like, hey, we should buy Aiden a new bike, and he'll think he'll either disagree, like, no, she can hit him like a little motorbike, right? Or he'll say, that's actually a good idea. Let me go online and go look up, some bikes to see how much they cost. And then we decide where that money is coming from. Are we playing it with a credit card? Are we paying cash? Those different types of things. And a lot of times in the relationships, all of those steps are skipped. And now I also want to say that that's something that we've had to establish for ourselves over time. It's not something that it was just like, oh, we just kind of knew what it was going to be walking in. We set those systems up for ourselves, and we jointly made those decisions, and now we apply them, right? Because it's something we both came up with, we both feel comfortable with, we apply them in our marriage, and money is not an issue in our marriage. If we have any other issues, trust me, it won't be money. It would never be money. And then so having that, communicating about it up front is very important, because a lot of people get divorce over money, whether it's not making enough money, or someone's hiding money, or someone's spending more money than have, putting the whole entire family into debt, making decisions, maybe taking out a second loan to fund one of their own personal ventures. Like, it will ruin a family, it will tear a family apart. And so we both grew up without much, right? We're both firstborn. Well, my husband's actually, he was born in Puerto Rico, and I was firstborn here in America. My family is from Trinidad. And, was the first to like graduate here, all of the above. And so for us, what we saw growing up was very different than how we live today. And so there was a lot that we had to navigate through and figure out together because, you know, our households and our upbringings look totally different. He grew up with two parents and not a lot. I grew up with just my mom and we didn't have a lot. But at the end of the day, our parents always made ends meet and we were able to, you know, to thrive and survive. And so I like to think of it as like a baton where I'm starting my kids off is a little bit different than how I grew up. But I also make sure that they understand, like, you have to earn every dollar that you get. I'm not gonna just hand money over to you. I shared this with you, Barb, before that I make my daughter balance a checkbook. She has a piggy bank. And every time she puts money in, she understands that is a deposit and she writes down the date where the money came from and how much she goes in. And then I make her balance it. She takes all the money out and she counts it and make sure what she counts matches what's on her ledger. When she pulls money out of her little piggy bank, she makes a withdrawal, right? And the rule is that you can only make a withdrawal if you make a deposit. So if you did extra in the house, you know, picked up an extra chore, helped me out with your brothers, sisters, whatever it may have been. Sometimes she helps me, she'll scan papers for me in the business and I'll give her money. And that's her deposit for the month. And then she can go and say, hey, mommy, can I get $10 for my Robux, which is a little game that she plays? And I go, yes, because you made a deposit this month. You can make a withdrawal. So it's like our personal bank account. You can't make withdrawals until you make a deposit. Like you have to work, you know, you have to put money in. So what we set for ourselves definitely work. And I hope that helps others, you know, who are on today and who are going to look later to think about, you know, their relationships with their partners. I mean, obviously it's different that if you stay home and you're watching the kids, you don't work, you know, and your husband is the only one, or the reverse where, you know, the wife may be working and the husband's staying home with the kids. Like, what does that dynamic look like? And, you know, I would say coming up with a system jointly where it doesn't feel like you're walking on eggshells and you're completely depending on that person, it really, really helps. You know, we came up with a system together on how we are going to manage money. Even though my husband or my wife is the only one bringing in money, we still make joint decisions about it. But you two really have to have that conversation up front and really go in being on the same page about what that rule is and that system that you're going to always turn back to when you're making financial decisions in the household.
Yeah, and I
really
said a
lot.
love
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. No, you didn't. It was all great, and I really love you used the word system a number of times. So I want to remind people that that's what Chantel does. Is she helps them build financial systems for their businesses.
Yes.
What I do is so they set financial boundaries for their business. I help people form boundary systems for their personal lives. So like your emotional boundaries and that sort of thing. So we're both boundary system builders.
Yes.
She just happens to work in the financial world and I work in the personal world. And I also want to say, you know, you may have missed it, but we both said we're going to talk about our own experience. We can't speak about other people's experiences. So we're not saying the way we do things is the way that you should do things. Exactly. You should do things based on your values. And if you are not living your life by your values, you can feel it and it feels crappy. And I will tell you, like, one of the things that having healthy boundaries, whether financial or not, has given me is the sense of feeling whole and solid. I actually have a podcast that's called Fragmented to Whole, Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery. And it's because before I had boundaries, I felt like I was pulled in all these different directions and I had all these facades up. Like, yeah, I can afford that. Or, you know, no, I don't mind if you do this and do that. And so I was fragmented. And now that I have healthy boundaries, all of that's been integrated and I am whole. And I don't feel badly setting boundaries with people any longer because I'm solid and whole and I have integrity. Wholeness and integrity are the same thing. When you have integrity, you don't have cracks in your foundation. I have cracks in my foundation. So if you are interested in building a financial boundary, you want to check in with Chantel. If you are interested in building a personal boundary, you want to check in with me. And actually, I do want to take a moment to say I'm having a really super awesome special this week and next. I have a membership community that's called Secure, Loved, and Brave. and it's normally $97 a month, and I'm having a 3-for-1 special. So it's $97
Ooh,
for 3 months. And
nice.
what you get for that membership is you get 2 times a month. We have 1 hour group coaching calls on Zoom. We have a Facebook group so you can get support from me and the other members of the group in between calls. I also have a ton of resources. So I have things like a self-love packet, a cultivating happiness and joy packet, a forgiveness inventory, all kinds of things. And as a super bonus, you get access to my signature course, 6 Weeks to Better Boundaries with Barb. So it's a multimedia course. There are videos, there are downloadable worksheets and audios and articles to read. So there's a curriculum to help you really figure out what are the right boundaries for me, and then also worksheets to help you build your own boundary system. So if you want to learn
Nice.
more, you can either check the link in my bio or you can DM me. And then I'm going to sign off and turn it over to Chantel to close it up with whatever she wants to say.
No, absolutely. I think this has been great. I wish we had more time to talk about boundaries and relationships. There's so much more to really talk about. Um, but I think I don't, well, to add, I don't have a special, but I think it's so important to have these conversations up front with our friends, with our family members, our significant others. Um, one more thing that we didn't mention, I just touch upon very quickly, is or lending money to family members, and knowing yes, to anyone, and knowing the strain that it may put on your relationships. And so you want to just keep in mind that if you know that you're going to be hurt and it's going to affect your relationship, if that person doesn't pay you back, then give that money as a gift if you have it. If you want to give the money to that person, give it as a gift. Don't lend it to them.
100% agree. 100%.
Because it just takes away the pressure, and it won't, weigh down on the relationship. So this way, if that person is not in a position to give it back to you, all right, well, it was a gift, whatever. I gave it, it's gone, that's done. Someone once told me, do not lend money if you're not willing to lose it. That's it.
Right.
Bottom line. And so if you know that that person is not, doesn't manage money well, and they have a track record of not paying back money, well, you have a choice. It's either you say, no, sorry, I can't give it to you, or you give it as a gift and just leave it at that. I'm just looking over the notes to make sure we covered everything. I think that's it, but this has been a really good episode. And thank you everyone who is in here. I see Jesse. He is from the Chamber of Commerce. And
Jesse.
Yes. I think I saw him at Known a couple of weeks ago. He went over there to visit you all. I saw on Sammy's site. Yeah. So, and everyone else that came in to visit us today. Our next episode is next week, which is our very last, unfortunately, next week, Tuesday at 1:30. And we're going to talk about we're going to jump into managing the finances into your business. So what does the boundaries have to do with you actually managing the finances in your businesses? So all of what we covered is really leading up to that, right? Really understanding our values as individuals, our upbringing, understanding how we apply the boundaries in our personal lives, and then how it mirrors in our business. So we're going to talk about your relationship with your vendors, and talk about your relationship with your customers. Barb alluded to it earlier about setting your prices and knowing your worth, the decision making.
You hear that, Maria Karina? She said she's about to watch the replay when it's posted.
Yes,
we were just talking earlier today about charging what you're worth.
That's right, charging what you're worth, and really, and setting that boundary. And really anyways, I won't jump into it because I'm excited about it. But anyways, thank you all for joining us today. I hope you watch the replay. I will post it, and we will see you all next week, Tuesday.
All right. Have healthy boundaries.
Yes. Bye. Take care.